Welcome back to Black Men Screaming. Again, my name is Maurice Carver, Executive Director of Stride Incorporated and host of your show. I'd like to welcome all those people out there watching the BMSTV network around the country. And I'd like to welcome back our brilliant, bodacious, I'm telling you, this is a dynamic brother. And you must go out and get his book. You must go out and get his book. And what is that book, my brother?
Black Nationalism in the United States.
The problem I have, and of course, we're talking to Professor James Taylor. He's like a permanent family member, permanent guest, and stuff in our house, and we don't want him to leave.
I found the 9-year-old DVD from Black Men Screaming that we recorded in 2010, so we've been doing this for a long time.
Yes, my brother. There's certain things about conversations within a family. We always have disagreements in family and stuff, but some of that stuff we try to keep in-house. One of the disagreements that we see going on right now is this whole issue dealing with Jay-Z and the NFL. And I want to kind of talk about that, and I want to kind of dissect that conversation and the pushback that people have had toward Jay-Z and the people that has been supporting him. And let's talk about what you think about that, and then move forward and where we think we should be going.
Absolutely, and I appreciate it. And the irony of us having this conversation is I'm actually wearing a New York Jets hat. I have a lot of New York Jets and Giants and Yankees and Mets, New York sports franchises, shirts and hats, because I'm out here 3,000 miles away, and I try to remind myself daily of where I come from and the family I come from to help me fight and deal with the daily challenges that come with being a black person in America. So this is more psychological for me to just remind me of Glen Cove, Long Island, New York, and Hempstead, Long Island, New York, where I was born and where I was raised. But it's also somewhat hypocritical of me because right now I haven't watched an NFL football game in about 3 years since the NFL response to Colin Kaepernick. It's not, again, there are other black men playing and other black people's careers that hinge on every aspect, from the vendors to the janitors to the field workers to the executives, every level of the NFL. Thousands and thousands of black Americans and other non-white people are employed through it. So I don't think it's wise to let the whole thing crash with a lack of black patronage and support. But I think it does raise a bunch of contradictions and complications for us on a whole lot of levels. So, as much as I will not watch NFL, I'm wearing my Jets hat because I'm from New York, and one of the only, the Jets come from Hempstead. They practice in Hempstead down by Hofstra College, Hofstra University. And that's part of to me, the irony of, this whole situation with Jay-Z and with Colin Kaepernick is black people are on both sides of the question. They understand what I just suggested about how many other people are in the employ of the NFL and other sports, from college football to NBA basketball to Major League Baseball to track and to other sports like tennis, where you see about 4 or 5 black girls, Coco Gauff and Naomi Osaka and Serena Williams and others now in the U.S. Open there in New York, dominating. And so the aspect of black people, we're on all sides of these issues. Conservative blacks exist, radical blacks exist. And there tends to be a black common sense. And I think that's where Black Men Screaming comes into play, is that we meet somewhere in the middle with black common sense, where you can be nuanced in your thinking, but also hold a critical perspective of someone like Jay-Z. Jay-Z, I've been listening to his music in the last 3 or 4 days. I threw in Holy Grail to listen to the music, and I've been listening to it driving around in Oakland every day in the traffic jams, pumping myself up with some of the words from Holy Grail, and some of the edge that it brings, because some people listen to rap to give them an edge as they deal with the realities of life, and hip hop has been our gospel music for our generation to deal with everything from the war on drugs to the reality of a Donald Trump that was a part of the war on drugs when we were kids in our 20s back in New York. So Jay-Z stepping into this space had to anticipate that he would catch hell from black common sense because of the obvious duplicity in him suggesting that we've reached a certain stage in the criticisms of the NFL, not so much just in terms of it not hiring back Colin Kaepernick. He got allegedly $25 million from them. But in the idea of the arrogance of the NFL owners and their slave master mentality, that they are going to teach him and us a lesson, that they've evaluated their product. And, they've made a choice like the Democratic Party has, that even though its base is black people, they keep trying to appeal to Corvair white America, symbolized by the Corvair car, meaning Aaron Brockovich America. That's who the NFL appeals to. That's who the Democratic Party appeals to. And yet when you peel away who is the basis, without black people, the Democratic Party cannot thrive or be successful at all. And the NFL is in the same box. But when you turn on Monday Night Football, when you watch the first week of NFL football, they're going to do their best to have a redneck culture as if it's the real culture, celebrating and sustaining the NFL and the Democratic Party. When they have Hank Williams asking us, are you ready for some football? 85% of the people on the field are going to be black men, who many of them come from Southern culture, no doubt, but who clearly are not the target of the NFL in terms of its self-marketing. It's appealing to the racists.
But one of the things that I think is very interesting about the conversation with Jay-Z in the NFL is that Jay-Z has been a opponent of President Trump, and there are a majority of owners that supported President Trump and his policies and stuff, and supported, and some of them actually came out and said that they thought he was right on this issue with the flag. The first problem with people misunderstanding, it's not the issue with the flag. See, I just made the mistake on purpose. It was the issue about violence, police, state-sponsored violence in black and brown communities. That is what we were talking about. Okay, it had nothing to do with us not disrespecting the flag. And if guess what?
And we should.
So the thing that I thought was interesting is that I saw an interview with Michael Eric Dyson on Undisputed, and they were asking him particular questions about this whole debate. And the first thing I was wondering to myself, who appointed Jay-Z to be able to speak on behalf of the majority of millions of black people? I mean, just because you and your wife have done some positive things, doesn't give you the right to step forward and make a decision like this without consulting with people. It's like the same argument people got on Steve Harvey about. You decided you wanted to go to the White House, but who? There are people that have studied these issues, that are articulate, that have put the hard work in. They're grassroots people. And guess what? If you was going to go, I would have had Colin Kaepernick right there in the seat right next to me to put it right in their face. It disrespects all of the hard work all the other people out here have done. Now, Eric Dyson compared the argument about us attacking Jay-Z as if how Malcolm attacked Martin and stuff. That's his argument. But I want you to know what you think about that.
Yeah, I did see that, and I hope wherever Mike Tyson is in Georgetown or wherever he is right now, he was chastened by his own the stupidity of his own words. Those are stupid words, to try to liken the critique of Jay-Z's opportunism to the Nation of Islam's purging of Malcolm X and eventual assassination of Malcolm X. This man has written 2 or 3 books on Malcolm X and Martin King. It's just dumb for him to actually make these connections. And so I hope he's embarrassed by it, because he couldn't sit in the room with people like me, or Ta-Nehisi Coates, or Bakari Katwana, or Jelani Cobb. I meant to say, not Bakari. I meant to say Jelani Cobb. Excuse me, Jelani Cobb, and have that conversation, because we would eat him up and put it back in his plate and tell him to take that back wherever he got it from, because there's no analytical basis for the comparison. There's no analog in his attempt to suggest that black voice should be muted because of the Nation of Islam's internal organizational divisions within the Nation of Islam. It's just bad historicizing and bad commentary and bad analysis. So Mike Dyson, you know, again, to make that comparison, he could only do it once, as he did in passing, but he couldn't write a book on that or sustain that argument around people who are, as you say, on the front lines of these issues. It's embarrassing for Michael Dyson to co-sign on Jay-Z. As I understand it, one of his more recent books was actually on Jay-Z.
Yes.
So it's self-promotion, it's ass-kissing, excuse my language, to your audience, but that's how I see it. You know, you can find me on YouTube talking about Michael Dyson in a piece recently where I basically talk about where he wrote a book and referred to Malcolm as a sexist. And I'm saying Mike Dyson is like an old comic view comedian that we used to watch on BET. Almost every black male comic would come out and talk about how fine the ladies were and how good they looked that night, to as an icebreaker to kind of warm up for the comedy, but almost perfunctorily, he has to say, "Oh, the ladies look beautiful here tonight." And that's how I see Mike Dyson co-signing on the idea that Malcolm was a sexist without even contextualizing that the whole generation of men, black, white, Puerto Rican, and everything in between the 30s, 40s, and 50s, and 60s, and 70s, had a different frame of reference as men than men, say, in the post-feminist era have in terms of understanding denuded sexism. In other words, you and me should be further along in being reformed as sexist than Malcolm and King's generation because of all of the writing and thinking and success and accomplishment and pushback that we've seen from black women feminists, from black womenists, from womenists, that's redundant, from womenists and from others. And so to see Mike Dyson critiquing everything and having an opinion about everything that leads him out into these no man's land that doesn't have a basis in a foundation of thought, that to me is part of the problem, that Mike Dyson is speaking to everything and trying to be popular as a public intellectual. That is how he can get caught up in saying Malcolm is a sexist because he wants to be popular, and now to say that Jay-Z is Malcolm on the verge of assassination, as stupid as it sounds, in order to be popular.
You know, the thing I think is interesting is that the problem with what people have is if Jay-Z would have got involved and it didn't seem like there was some type of ulterior motive to like, for example, getting a franchiseship. You know, if he went in there and said, okay, look, we're going to do this, and this is what we want the NFL to do, and you went and you did it without trying to get anything out of it, I don't think anybody would have had an issue with that.
Right.
I think it of course, we still would have said, yo, Colin Kaepernick should have had a seat at the table, man. It's
right.
like